Breaking news. The White House has finally came out and they've said what these mystery drones over New Jersey are. But remember, there's been a lot more reports of mystery drones that could potentially be UAPs or UFOs or some other exotic tech. But finally, we have some disclosure about the mystery drones in New Jersey. The White House just had a press briefing, and I'm going to share part of that with you. So I want to thank you very much for being here with us. We've got a lot to talk about today, and in a few minutes, Collin Plume is going to be on the show, and incredible information that Collin is going to share with us about the markets. I mean, wow. I don't know if you've been keeping track of the markets lately, but they are, anyway. So you just want to listen to what Collin has to say because he's the expert. So, but first off, I want to share with you this video. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt briefs members of the media. This is hot off the press. This just happened. So listen to this. It's going to blow your mind. Okay. Are you ready? Oh, wait. Before we do that, though, I want to give a huge shout out to Noble Gold Investments. So if you've got a 401 or an IRA, if you convert your 401 or IRA into precious metals through Noble Gold Investments, which, by the way, has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews. If you qualify, find out how, they will gift you 10 ounces of solid silver. You'll get 2 5-ounce America the Beautiful coins of solid sterling silver, 10 ounces to add to your collection. And they'll even give you the latest hot off the press, silver is the new oil. So you definitely want to take advantage of that. Give them a call, 1-877-646-5347. Let them know Rex from Leak Project sent you, and go to noblegoldinvestments.com. Okay, let's go. Are you ready? Buckle up, Buttercup. Get your non-GMO popcorn. You're going to need it. You're going to need it. And we have more questions after this press briefing. We have more questions, and I know you will too. Here we go. She looks happy, though. Right? She definitely looks happy. All right, let's see. Here we go. I'm going to turn it up. Volume's all the way up. Yes. Here we go.
Have not been given seats in this room. And before I turn to questions, I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office. From President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy. A statement from the President of the United States to start this briefing with some news. And with that, I will turn it over to questions. And we will begin with our new media members, Mike Allen from Axios, Matt Boyle from Breitbart.
I have some questions. Let's go back and listen to that real quick.
Authorized to be flown by the FAA and seats in this room. And before I turn to questions, I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office. From President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
Wow. Okay, so research and various purposes. Research and various purposes. What kind of research? What kind of various purposes? I mean, it's pretty obvious when the FAA restricts airspace to drones and then the drone sightings almost disappear, drastically reduce. I mean, it's pretty obvious that the FAA would, you would think that they would. So why didn't they tell us before? And why now? And what kind of research? What kind of research? That's what I want to know. And why are these the same drones that are flying over military sites? If they're the same drones that are flying over military sites, then what kind of research are they doing at those military sites? And why didn't they tell the public about it? And is it like a different faction within the government that's getting this information and collecting data for some reason? And why don't you show us the drones that shot out of the ocean on the East Coast? Those are the drones that I want to see, because you didn't tell us anything about that. You didn't tell us anything about that, just various research purposes. Okay, well, gee, now let's go think about something else. Now let's see what the latest carrot at the end of the stick is going to be. I mean, I think that's a pretty lackluster answer to the drone swarms in New Jersey, War of the Worlds, New Jersey. Anyway, very interesting. But I want to go through now also, and then I'm going to bring some more information about the drones at the end of this presentation. But I want to bring Collin Plume on, because Collin Plume is an expert when it comes to precious metals, when it comes to to commercial real estate. I mean, he's been doing it for 20 something years. He's the founder of Noble Gold Investments. And with all of the tariffs and threats of tariffs and the deportations and the possible North American Union being brought about into fruition. I mean, if it's going to happen, this would be the time to happen if it's going to happen. And I'm not even saying that I'm for it, but it's very interesting with Greenland and Canada and so much going on. So let's bring Collin in and see what Collin has to say about these executive orders, a plethora of executive orders. More executive orders have been signed over the past several days in the second term of President Trump than any president previous. I mean, this is it's like we're in a reality TV show and aliens are watching us and they're like, wow, look at these humans. Look at what these humans can do. They think drones are from us, silly humans. Isn't it bizarre that these mystery drones were also flying over Trump's golf course? Like, what's up with that? What kind of research purposes are we talking about here? Very interesting. I have some theories on that, and I'm going to share with you after we bring in Collin. So let's bring in Collin, and thank you so much for being here with me, because you're awesome. Wow. Oh my. The world is. So I just read an executive order. President Trump has signed more executive orders than any other president in history in the amount of time that he's been in office for the second term. And there's one titled The First 100 Hours, Historic Action to Kick Off Americans' Golden Age. And I was like, well, that's perfect. I'm talking to Collin today. So I'm going to bring this up. Now, it's interesting because if you look at today's markets and if you talk to just about anybody about the current administration, it's like he's either the savior or he's the antichrist. Have you noticed that?
Right. Yeah. There's no middle ground for everything that's been happening. Yeah. No, he's definitely come out swinging. And I would say that's probably the benefit of the fact that he was already a president. So he knows how to get things done and move quickly. And it's been quite exciting. I mean, there's so many different, things happening. I really focus on the economic side of it. So I'm focused on the tariffs and what's going to happen there, the pros and cons of that. Because February 1st is right around the corner, and that's when the tariffs on Mexico and Canada are supposed to start. And so we'll see if that happens, or there's different beliefs of what's happening, if it's actually something that he's gonna do, or if this is just a negotiation to make sure that when he moves some of the migrants out, that they accept him, like what happened in Colombia, or if he's actually going to hold firm on the tariff conversation. Because at the end of the day, tariffs are an idea that work in the long term, but in the short term, the idea when the goods come here to the U.S. means that the person that received the goods is going to pay a tax to the government, and then the cost of that good is going to go up by 25%, right? So the person that's going to end up paying for that tariff is actually the person living here in the United States. So it will make things more expensive. So and I think when we already have pretty heavy inflation, that is something that most people don't want. So I think the only way it makes sense is if it's something that is in combination with lowering of our taxes. Then it would make more sense, because then it's like, okay, we're paying more for a good with the idea that there'll be more manufacturing here, we'll bring more jobs here. But those things can't happen right away. You can't open up a factory right away. You can't start manufacturing. This thing's going to take many years. So my concern is, by the time the benefit of the tariff idea comes into play and they've opened up the manufacturing, there'll be a new president, and the new president could go in a different direction and change tune. And then how does it really help us, if that makes sense? So it is concerning. The other thing that I'm concerned about is imports of silver into the US. If you look at how much silver is imported from Mexico, 85% of the silver that we use here in the US comes from Mexico. If you charge a 25% import tax, that will increase the cost that we have to pay for silver. So, that is something to think about, that we will pay a significant increase on silver for all the things that we need, solar panels and jewelry and everything that we're using. So that is one byproduct of this tariff conversation. So,
I've heard him bring it up several times now, at least the news. I've seen the news bring it up several times, and it seems like that's a good strategy in the art of the deal to get.
Right.
So, but I've also wondered, with the talks of bringing in Greenland, with the talks of bringing in Canada, and then if you look at some of the older maps of the North American Union, it's very fascinating how they parallel each other. Now, whether or not that happens, I have no idea. But if it is going to happen, it seems like this is the term that it would happen. What do you think about something like that? Real quick, folks, I did just want to let you know also, if you haven't met Collin before, Collin is the CEO of Noble Gold Investments, a trusted leader in the precious metals investment space. Collin brings over 2 decades of experience in financial services, specializing in wealth preservation and diversification strategies. And as the driving force behind Noble Gold, Collin has guided countless individuals towards securing their financial futures through gold, silver, and other precious metals. He's also author of Silver is the New Oil. And folks, if you have a 401 or an IRA and you convert it into precious metals through Noble Gold Investments, if you qualify, give them a call and find out how. You will be gifted 10 ounces of solid silver, 2 5-ounce America the Beautiful coins, and that will be added to your collection. So give them a call, 1-877-646-5347. I've bought gold and silver through Collin. I've worked with Collin and Noble Gold Investments now for several years. My mother-in-law is going to be giving you guys a call. She actually was staying with us just a few weeks ago. Well, actually, it was around Thanksgiving, so about, 8 weeks or so ago. But anyway, when she was out here, she was really concerned about the markets. And she's like, I don't know if I want to keep my money in the bank because I don't know what's going to happen to my money. She says, what do you think? And I said, well, we're going to give Collin a call because, so what do you see going on right now with this big change? Like, Trump is signing executive order after executive order after executive order. We've got mystery drones flying all over New Jersey and off the coast.
Right.
Weird stuff's going on.
Yeah. Well, like, in response to your mother-in-law and the equity markets, it's something that I track very closely, and it's because I'm a big believer in diversification. So I look at each sector, because I do think you need to be wealthy today and to have a comfortable retirement, you need to have uncorrelated assets. Ray Dalio, famous billionaire, lover of gold and silver, market analyst, he says you need anywhere from 8 to 15 uncorrelated investments to have a retirement, because if you pick the best of those 8 to 15 and you just hold them for the long term, you will do better than the average market maker. Because if you're picking the best categories, so you have gold and silver, and maybe you have a business, maybe you have some dividend stocks, you have some precious metals. These are all, you can have these uncorrelated investments. And so you could ride the waves of what we've seen over the last few years. I think have been the greatest acknowledgement of that strategy making a lot of sense, because you had 2 years where the stock market pulled back and we're down. You've had more than 2 years where real estate's been in trouble, and I think you're going to have a few more years. Precious metals have done very well during those situations. Alternative currencies, cryptos have done very well during those situations. A lot of businesses that are necessities like plumbers and all these businesses are doing very well, right? These blue collar worlds. So the key really is having diversification. And I would say that the thing that concerns me the most about the equity market is just how much wealth is coming from so few companies. You know, like you look at Nvidia, you know, they were responsible for 25% of the growth over the last 3 years in the S&P. That's one company. And you saw what happened over the weekend. And, you know, DeepSeek comes in and said, I don't know if you tested it out. Did you try it? Did you try the DeepSeek?
I haven't tried it yet. I'm afraid to. I use
So,
OpenAI all the time. I mean, I use
yeah,
that.
so I do think there is some concerning things that you know, that it's coming from China. You know, we just went through this TikTok ban. I do think there is some things, but that being said, I still tried it because, you know, curiosity killed the cat, and I just had to see what it was all about. And I got to tell you, I compared it apples to apples with ChatGPT. And on the things that I wanted to do, which are similar things that you want to do in the marketing and content, I thought it was better. And it's, they say like, you know, some of the plans with ChatGPT cost anywhere from like $50 to $200. They're coming out of the gate at $2 a month. They have a free version that is pretty spectacular. So the scary thing for the Magnificent Seven, Nvidia, and all these is they've really bet their horse on AI, and they've said how much these things are going to cost. This is the thing that's concerning, is that, you know, they've said it's going to cost, you need all these supercomputers and you need all this. Well, they sell their old junky computers to this DeepSeek. They use them at a fraction of the price, and they build this product that is competing. So all of these people that have said they needed all this money for R&D over all these years, now they're proving maybe to be wrong. And so when you prove that to be wrong, that sent the stock market, the whole stock market crashed yesterday because of this DeepSeek. Think about that. One company comes out with a product that affects one other company, mostly, maybe a few other ones to some extent, and the whole stock market crashes. That is unbelievable that we could have one company, their business be hurt, and maybe proven that they don't need as much money to create the product, that they're overcharging people. I mean, you can go down the line, but how that could affect the whole stock market is a testament to how it's just weighted too high at the top, right? It's not enough spread out risk. And so that, I think, is the thing that's the most concerning, is that we have a very narrow stock market today where most of the wealth is in these 7 companies. And I don't think that's good diversification for a market, for a portfolio. And so I think that's the thing that's concerned people the most. If you compare to today, to like, if you go back in the 1970s, we had the Nifty 50. So you had 50 strong companies, IBM, Xerox, all these. So it was much more diversified, right? Now it's very narrow. And so that would give me a lot of pause. The other thing too is the market corrections are so fast. I mean, this company came out a month ago, DeepSeek, and then this weekend they released their second version, the one that's really going to compete. Once the world started testing it, the market just crashes. The regular investor didn't have time. They didn't have time to pull out. So the corrections can be fierce and fast. And that's exactly how bear markets work today. Bull markets are slow and steady. Bear markets are quick and painful. And that's really, I mean, listen, the market didn't totally collapse, bounce back a little bit today, but we're in a very volatile world right now. And that, you know, presents a lot of fear, I think, for a lot of people that, hey, you know, maybe this stock market is really based on a tech idea that is not as strong as we thought it was.
It dropped Nvidia dropped 17% yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
$589 billion erased from the company's market capitalization in a day. That's wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And now I think I may have to try that software.
The thing that it does that I was very interested in is that it does a better job of explaining, like, when you ask somebody a question and there's two types of people, ChatGPT is like just shoots out the answer, right? This DeepSeek is more like a human in that it tells you its thought process. It really goes into the thought process and it gives you a more long, detailed answer of why it came to that conclusion. And then the marketing side, which I was mentioning, is like kind of what we do. It can analyze a video. Let's say they analyze this video and they're said, like, give us 5 shorts that we could cut from this video and call to actions. And they both did it. But DeepSeek, the way that they did it, they kind of explained the idea of why they were doing it and why they picked the call to actions. And so I'd love for you to test that theory out with it, because I think you'll be fascinated and that's the only thing I did, because that's sort of what we're doing is marketing, and it's a big part of our business. So I wanted to test that. So I didn't test it for math. I'm sure it can figure out math, but I would say that anyone that's a writer, anyone in the marketing world, I think it's a pretty good product, and the fact that it's a fraction of the price obviously is quite. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the next few months in the next year. But it was the #1 downloaded app on the App Store. So it went from 0 to #1 in 1 month. So if that tells you anything.
It does. And it's very telling when you realize there's only a couple of handfuls of corporations that control the majority of the stock price. I mean, that's fascinating, or a large portion of it, I should say. And that like leads me to the next question then. So President Trump has talked about getting $1 trillion in new funding, and he's saying Saudi Arabia is going to invest $600 billion. The Stargate project is going to cost about $500 billion. And then Elon Musk comes out, he's got his concerns about it. And then there's the Sam Altman,
Right.
like the OpenAI thing that's going on right now, blower that something happened to him, that they're questioning about what actually happened. So I don't know, man. I find that very, very telling. So like, what do you see with the tech stocks then? Do you think that this is going to continue to be a roller coaster? Like it has?
No, I absolutely just, if you look at actual returns, market is just on price Schiller index and all these indexes that look at the underlying value of stocks. Some people think it's 3 or 4 times overvalued in current state. I think a lot of it today too is, we have this kind of euphoria with the new administration coming in, but eventually, like it is going to come down eventually to returns. It's going to come down to how the market is doing. And obviously faith in the market is a big thing, and we're going to, probably have that for the foreseeable future. But eventually, I do think that you have to be careful. So much belief in this one entity. And I think that inflation and high interest rates are really going to play a big part in this, because the Fed has lowered rates by 100 basis points over the last 12 months. And most people thought mortgages and rates and bond rates would go down, and they've actually gone up. The 10-year Treasury note today is exactly the same price it was in 2008. And we all remember what happened after 2008. So with the Fed not having the ability, the Fed has lost its ability to push down rates. That's basically what's happened, because with 100 basis points, you would think that rates would be coming down, but they have not come down. The bond market is saying we're still seeing a lot of inflation. The bond market sitting at 4.7% is saying that we still believe there's a lot of inflation. And we actually think the Fed may not be able to lower rates even more. They're going to meet actually tomorrow. The Fed has a meeting at 11 a.m. tomorrow, which will be very telling. But based on last month's CPI, which actually was higher, technically they can't lower rates anymore if they're going to go back to 2%. So how do they stimulate the economy in a way if they can't lower rates? Because we borrow, the big problem is the US borrows money for ourselves too. So actually, with rates going up, it's costing us more money to borrow money too, to keep everything going the way that we need to keep going. And the Fed and China and Japan over the last 90 days, they've basically been selling bonds. We've been selling. So I think that's another concerning factor, is that rates are going up. The real estate market's already had a tremendous amount of problems. And I think this month, they said it's the lowest buying of real estate in 30 years. So there's all of these, red flag warnings for the economy that are happening. And then you have this massive commercial real estate bubble that's coming due this year. There's all of these loans in maturity that are coming to maturity. And so there's a big strategy in commercial real estate. It's called extend and pretend. And that's what's happening right now, is that banks are in a very precarious situation because they don't want to properties back. That's not the business they're in. And so what they're doing is they're just going to extend. This is what they're going to do over the next year or two, in my opinion, starting to happen a little bit. They're just going to extend notes. So all these commercial buildings that are coming due, they're just going to extend. They're not going to call these notes because they really can't call these notes that are coming due, because a lot of the interest rates that these loans were under are in the 3 to 4% range. They recalibrated those loans to today's rates. Rates would be in the 5 to 7% range. So you have commercial properties that have higher vacancy, rents are flat or going down, and now they have to recalibrate these loans to what rates are today. They can't. It's impossible. They're underwater. So they're doing this extend and pretend strategy, coupled with the fact that now the U.S. government's selling office buildings. Now the U.S. government is trying to get out of leases. So now there's going to be more properties available on the market. So I think this commercial bubble, this is going to be around for a long time. It's going to take them a long time to get out of it. And really, unless we see a loosening up of the money supply, there's no way for banks and for people in the commercial real estate space to survive. I mean, they're just going to, because eventually at some point, if vacancy keeps going up, the debt's too high, they're just going to hand it back to the banks. And then the banks are going to get stuck in the real estate business. And then what's going to happen? The government's going to have to come in and bail everybody out. And that's just going to cost us a whole lot of money again. So I don't think selling a lot of our office space right now is our best strategy, but I understand the concept that a lot of it is wasteful. But I do think that it's going to add more inventory to a market that's already going to have a tremendous amount of inventory, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, I know it's something you've been following for years. And
yeah,
one of the things I was also going to ask you about, so we've got these major fires in California.
Yes.
Like thousands of homes in different structures. Then we had the horrible hurricane and the terrible weather, the extreme weather on the East Coast hitting North Carolina and other places. What is that going to do to the economy?
Well, I can tell you exactly. A month before the fire, I live in Los Angeles. So a month before the fires, I sat down with a few of my friends that sell commercial apartment buildings, large apartment buildings. And I was asking about the market, and they were just saying how slow it is. And they were like, it's funny, who's the biggest buyer of apartment buildings in Los Angeles? And I said, no. They said the city of Los Angeles. The city of Los Angeles was one of the biggest buyers of apartment buildings last year. And big buildings, because I saw a building sell for $400 million, not far from my house. And I was like, wow, what a trade. And they're like, yep, city of Los Angeles will pay anything. And that was a month before the fires. And so when you really look at what's happening, it's really a transfer of assets is what's happening right now. These fires are displaced thousands and thousands of people. It was preventable. They knew it. Anyone that had any common sense that hiked or walked around those areas could see the brush. They knew it was a problem. Firefighters I know for years would say one fire and one heavy wind, this whole area is gone, and they were right, obviously. And so I really believe that, unfortunately, this is a transfer of wealth. I think the government will end up taking some of these properties because people will they don't want to wait 4 years. They can't afford it. A lot of people can't afford to rebuild or wait that amount of time to rebuild. And I know they've talked about they're going to, make permitting faster and all this stuff that they're talking about doing. But I think if you really look at it, it's a transfer of assets. And this is the thing that I have come to realize, that the biggest thing that people need to do is they need to have real assets. They need to have protection from this exact situation. And yeah, it's quite scary that in a state that has one of the highest taxes in the country doesn't have enough money to put water in the reservoirs, doesn't have enough fire department to be ready for this kind of situation, isn't prepared for a fire in an area where, they wouldn't even let you cut back your brush. It didn't make any sense what was happening. And the reason I know it's preventable is because if you look at private institutions in that area, they were able to survive. For instance, Rick Caruso, who ran for mayor, who owns a ton of commercial real estate, has a shopping center right in Pacific Palisades. He hired a private fire department, and that place did not get burned. He also built it in a way that was protected against fires. And so he protected his property. There's 8 other homes in that area he protected. He protected a few other homes that were outside of that area. So he was able to protect himself. The Getty Museum, there's 2 Getty museums. There's one in Malibu. They cut back their brush. They had a preventative measure in place, and they did not get burned. They survived the fire. So the private companies were able to survive because they were prepared. The government was unprepared, as they said, for what happened. But I truly believe that it's a transfer of wealth that I think I don't know who was responsible for it, but it's hard for me to believe that it was an accident.
Wow. Yeah, I hear you, man. You're not the only one. As much as there's people out there trying to say, oh, your mistakes happen. I can see why people are, I'm trying to play devil's advocate in the sense of like, maybe it just was too intense and they couldn't have prevented it. But there's just too much data suggesting otherwise.
Yeah.
Way too much.
Yeah. Way too much. Yeah. There's way too much. And listen, it was, the winds were unbelievable, over that time period. But I think, listen, we knew 24 hours in advance there was going to be heavy winds. I knew the day before. It said it on the news that they were expecting 75, 80 mile an hour winds. Okay, well, we haven't had a rain in a while. Like, we should have been ahead of it. There was no fire trucks in the Palisades. Also, if you look at what happened in near Pasadena, the Eden fire, and there's plenty of lawsuits going around now, they never turned off the electricity. So, you look at a situation where, that area started to catch on fire about 6 p.m. at night. The electricity didn't get turned off close to 11 p.m. that night. How can you have the power on when you have a raging fire happening? Everyone had power. That's the first thing you turn off. By the way, usually just with heavy winds, they would turn the power off. Edison never had the power off. They didn't have the power off till later on in that day. So, obviously a lot of that, what happened there could have been in a much better situation if there's no power. Obviously you have to watch about power lines falling down, and that whole area, burned, and obviously thousands of homes burned there. So there's a lot of blame to go around, private and public. But at the end of the day, the thing that's hard is that there's a lot of people there that, had the majority of their net worth tied up in their home. And, what are they going to do? Are they going to wait to rebuild? What's the cost going to be to rebuild? There's a lot of these issues that are going to come up, because, when you have this many homes built, there's only so many construction people in the area. There's not enough construction crews to do all this work. So people are going to have to come in from out of state, and hopefully we can get some of this red tape out of the way, and these people can build their homes quickly. But there's no way that the cost to rebuild isn't going to be 20, 30, 40% higher than it was 2 months ago. I mean, it's absolutely going to be more expensive. And a lot of people, unfortunately, were underinsured. They weren't insured for the value that they need to rebuild. And that's also a pretty difficult situation. So yeah, I mean, you just have all these catastrophes happening and exposure. And it creates a pretty significant problem for any community. Both of those communities were some of the most beautiful. Eaton Canyon in Pasadena is one of the most beautiful places to go hiking. Palisades. I mean, these are two gorgeous communities that are never going to be the same. I mean, it's going to take years and years to rebuild. So it's a real shame. It's a real shame.
How close do they get to your house?
Pretty close. I was, we lived in the San Fernando Valley area. So we were, at one point, the Palisades fire was moving east and north. And if it had gone over Mulholland, so basically at one point they had all the fire trucks laid out and they were dropping that fire retardant right on Mulholland. If it had got over Mulholland and got over into the San Fernando Valley, I mean, they're talking 250 billion. We probably would have been at 500 billion in damages if it had gotten over, because once it got over Mulholland, that's all brush there too. So all of those homes, and then it would have just been like kind of a straight shot down, potentially in the San Fernando Valley. And we're talking about, the amount of multi-million-dollar homes there. I think the average home in that area is $3 to $4 million. And there's, hundreds of homes, if not thousands of homes in that area. So it would have been pretty traumatic if they were able to get it, but they were able to kind of do an impasse there and stop the fires from moving. But they didn't stop them for quite some time, and they were moving. I mean, every time you looked at that map, they were growing. But yeah, they were able to stop it, and people's homes were saved. But yeah, it was a pretty hairy situation for some time. The air quality was terrible, and our kids were really quite confused as to what's going on, but luckily we were spared.
Man, I'm glad you guys are okay. That sounds like it must have been like, did you get any sleep? Were you able to sleep at all when that was happening?
We left. So we left that weekend, I took my gold and silver. It's funny, actually, the other stuff we didn't really take, but we took our gold and silver and took a few other things, packed a bag, and we got out of town for a few days and just said, that's it. If it happens, it happens. And, we had our kids and our loved ones, and, that's what's most important. But yeah, I put the gold and silver in a backpack and got the cars and got out of there, as quick as possible. So we were pretty lucky.
Regulators, mount up.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, man, I'm so glad you and your family are okay. And if that ever happens again, you can come visit us here in Southern Colorado, and we'll go do some hiking and some exploring.
Yeah.
We don't even have snow out here, man. There's no freaking snow.
That's wild. Yeah, it's wild.
7,000 feet elevation. We've had below zero temperatures and blue skies for.
Yeah.
I went out biking yesterday because it was like 45 degrees, and I realized not to take turns as fast as I did. I thought I was like, Tadej Pogacar or something like that. And I smashed my thumb. My thumb is completely.
Oh no.
So I'm like, hey, I'm eating with my left hand. I'm like, I can't even pick up a silver bar with my right hand. Anyway, so enough about that. But I just read a really cool article about how there was a shipwreck where they found like 364 coins and this treasure trove.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's pretty cool. You probably know about this.
Yeah. It was well, I love these kind of stories because it shows how gold and silver coins were a reliable store of wealth in this time period. And it also talks about how basically, this was Venice. Venice economic dominance was reflected in this gold hoard that we had, and they used these coins to trade and barter through Egypt and Syria, and these, all these countries were trading and bartering, and they were using these coins that they found in this hoard of coins. And it was the trusted medium of exchange from, Christian and Islamic economies. So I think it's quite fascinating to go back this many years and think about, that they were using, these to trade and barter with. And it was something that was respected across different countries. And I think that's telling, even today, if you think about it, last year, all these central banks, it was the biggest buying of gold. And I think 15 years before that, central banks in November alone, they bought 53 tons of gold. Bank of Poland was really leading the charge, bought tremendous amounts of gold. And it shows just for thousands of years, these coins have been used for trading and bartering. And even today, central banks are still using it as a medium of exchange. And that's why I think when you look at, even this new economy, and you look at AI, and you look at all these things that are happening, there still has to be some fundamental value. Crypto, you still have to have things that people understand and have a universal truth. And I think that's the one thing that gold has really always presented, is that it's universally understood and it's a universal medium of exchange. And so when I read these stories, and also, by the way, the coins, I don't know if you have any pictures of the coins. The coins are in incredible condition. So not only did they survive and they were found, they're still in good condition. And, some, museum is going to obviously show these coins, and maybe eventually investors are going to buy these coins. But it's fascinating to think that, 600 years ago, there's coins and they're still in a condition that today where they could be used potentially in bartering and exchanging. And that just shows the lasting value of gold, which is something quite fascinating for people to understand, is that, yes, it feels like, we do something that's old, we do something that's been around for a long time, but even today, central banks are buying gold, and you got to think, with all the assets that they could buy, why are they continuing to buy gold? It's because it's a safe place to park their money. And with all the volatility that's out there, the stock market and AI and crypto, central banks want stability, and that's why they continue to buy gold. Now, I will say, in my book, I talk about this: silver is the new oil. I really do think silver is the great opportunity today. I think gold will continue to do well, but every indicator that I see is that, even if you just looked at solar panels alone, the increase every year of need of silver is 14 to 17%, just in that specific industrial use. So you look at silver and you say, okay, well, if they got to keep using it, they got to keep mining it, where could it potentially go? And that's why in my book, I go over all the industrial uses, because, on an interview like this, I don't have time. But if you read through, you look at the charts, and I really talk about how silver isn't going to replace oil. It's not going to replace oil. I just think the opportunity in silver is similar to the opportunity was in oil 100 years ago. I think that, when J. Paul Getty and all these people found oil, and the crazy thing about it is the Gettys, for instance, a great example. They're still living. There's family members still living off that money from 120 years ago, right? So I talk about how silver and oil are starting to mirror each other, and I go through that through a lot of charts, and I just talk about that opportunity. And so I think that, you do want things that are stable, and I think gold does supply that stability. But I do think that if you're just looking at opportunity, I think silver is just a great opportunity. It's also an easier price for people to get into, to get started. But, the uses just continue to grow. And until silver is sitting at $200 or $300 an ounce, I don't think these industries are going to look for an alternative, which is the other thing too, is I think we're catching it kind of early in the investment cycle. There is a point where, it becomes maybe too expensive for some industries. But at $30 an ounce, we're not anywhere near that price point yet. And you compare it to like platinum and palladium, platinum's, 1,000, palladium's near that price too. And some of these other metals that are out there that are much more expensive. Silver's still got a lot of room to run before it becomes too expensive for some of these industries.
Mm-hmm. Let me see. I think I found an image here. Here we go.
Yeah, look at that. 600 years old. I mean, that's
Underwater.
quite impressive.
In salt water.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how they've been able to survive. And I hope some of these come up for auction. I mean, I'd love to see if there's any way to buy these later on. A lot of times they end up in museums, but I mean, how cool would it be to have one, have a silver coin that's 600 years old in your collection? So, so yeah, I mean, these are the things that people need to look at. And also, I think today, more than anything, is that this idea of the stock market and how fast things move, it really is scary for the day-to-day investor, how fast these corrections happen. So I think it's a good time to take a look at some of the things that we do and get some free guides. Check out our book on Amazon. It actually just hit #1 today. If you look it up in commodities trading today on Amazon, it just hit #1. So for anyone looking to read it, it's easy read. Actually, I was reading it yesterday to my 8-year-old son, and he was actually reading through it too. So it's, there's a few words in there he didn't know, but for the most part, it's geared towards anyone. And I think that the book in 5 years people will look at this book much different than they look at it today. And I always think that I think I'm a few steps ahead in terms of my predictions. And so it's exciting. And the feedback's been great. David Morgan, a big silver buff, wrote the open to my book. But yeah, for anyone that wants to learn about silver, I think it's a good time, especially in the market. Most of the books are about gold. So I think this is a fresh approach to talk about silver.
So we've been doing interviews now for, I think, about 7 years.
7 years.
I go back and think about the interviews we did 7 years ago, and you're definitely ahead of the curve. You're way ahead of the curve. And so one of the last questions I want to ask you, and I know you got to get Boogie, and so I'll make this quick, but what is the ratio between gold and silver now, and what is it traditionally? And
90-1 today.
Okay.
If you go back the last 100 years, it's 50-1.
Wow.
So even if gold didn't go up $1, 50-1, that means silver sitting in the few $100 range.
Wow.
So that would be a pretty significant correction. I think realistically this year silver hits 36, 37 because I think inflation is sticky. I don't think Paul Tudor Jones, famous billionaire trader, hedge fund guy, said it in November last year. He's like, all roads lead to inflation. That's why alternative investments will do well. So I think, you got mid-30s this year. And then if we have like some kind of black swan event or something happen, then I think, silver and gold could rush even more. But even from where it's sitting today in the mid-30s would be a nice gain. That's, 20, 21% gain from today. So I think anybody would be happy with that. And I would just say, like, it's a great time to get educated. Your 401k IRA, you probably have a statement right now. You can look at how you did last year, compare it to gold, compare it to the future. And if you have questions and want to learn about, how we handle IRAs or the process, just give us a call and mention that you heard us here on the Leak Project and with Rex, and we'd be happy to help you.
Right on. Okay. All right, you guys. Well, that was pretty awesome. And so now I want to get into the drone thing with y'all, because there is a lot of theories going around about these drones right now. But I also want to show you the white. If you're just joining us, thank you for being here, and thank you for being awesome. I hope you're having a beautiful day. We're going to get into the drone. We talked about the drones at the beginning, and now we're going to get back into it again. So I've been following these drones and the mystery drone phenomena since November. And actually, what's even more interesting is we can take it back to the end of 2023, over Langley, where drones were spotted over Langley for 17 days. So we have drones flying over Langley for 17 days at the end of 2023. 71 years prior to that, UAPs and UFOs were flying over the White House, literally 71 years to the date. And guess what? They were flying over the Capitol for 17 days while there were congressional hearings going on about UFOs. So we've got 17, 71, 17. And then now we've got this disclosure. And then January 17th, they lifted the restrictions on the drones. So the White House comes out today. They have a briefing today, and I'm going to share this clip with you where they admit drones over New Jersey, but they just bring up New Jersey. They don't bring up other states. They don't bring up the drones that came out of the water that tracked the Coast Guard. They don't talk about the drones that were hovering over an airport in Hong Kong that shut down airspace back. Guess what day? September 11th, 2024, last year. Very interesting timing. So watch this. Here we go. And how's everybody doing? I hope you're having a beautiful day today. Here we go.
Seats in this room. And before I turn to questions, I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office from President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy. A statement from the President of the United States to start this briefing with some news. And with that, I will turn it over to questions. And we will begin with our new media members, Mike Allen from Access.
Okay. Now, I don't know what you think about that.
Wow. Oh,
Hold on. Where's my video? There we go. And then. Yeah. You can look at this a couple of different ways. You can look at it as, well, they didn't really tell us anything. They just said it was for research purposes, but they did just admit it. And that does make sense. So for all of you out there now that have been saying pretty much, okay, why do they? Well, wait a second here. Wait a second. They're not telling us the whole story. They're just telling us a little piece, though. You got to remember that. Maybe certain drones in New Jersey, like the ones that pretty much disappeared when the airspace was restricted to drones and flights, they restricted the airspace out there. The drone sightings pretty much disappeared. And then they lift the restrictions on airspace and activity picks back up again. And then people describe them to be about the size of an SUV. They describe them to look kind of like small planes and have a sound of like a miniature jet engine almost. But then what about the end? Here's where it gets really weird. We go back the end of last year, different administration, 181 mayors get together in New Jersey, and none of them have intel about what's going on. I spoke to the mayor of Paquani, and very nice guy. And he said that he saw 60 of these things fly over his house. And then he talked about the meeting. He talked about bringing different organizations that were willing to bring in multi-million-dollar camera equipment to track these things. And they were turned down. And there was really no intel given to them. But then news comes out, oh, there's a footage, body camera, police officer recording about 60 drones shooting out of the water, tracking a Coast Guard vessel. The Coast Guard says they got tracked. They get upset because at the time, the previous administration didn't really validate their story very well. But I'll tell you what, the drones that we're seeing over New Jersey are definitely not the drones that are being seen shooting out of the water. There's no possible way they could be anywhere close to the same technology. So yesterday I shared with you, we looked at approximately 7 or 8 different drone type technologies, some available in the commercial sector, some available in the military, some like even hobbyist type drones. New technologies are being developed to mimic birds and insects for drones. So we're talking about like micro drones. Remember back in 2013, there were photographs going all over the social media of what looked like this miniature robotic fly. Or no, it was actually more like a robotic mosquito because it had like a little miniature needle at the end of it. And it could have been fake. It could have been just something in development or something talked about for research purposes. Or it could actually be a legit photograph of, at the time, what could have been a prototype or some type of highly secretive nano drone insect swarm technologies. And so when the media starts talking about these different drones, oh, I got it. I got another answer for you. So when there's drone activity going on, or UAPs or UFOs that we can't explain, that are hovering over military sites or tracking airplanes or jets or military vessels or boats, or flying over nuclear sites, and people are seeing it and it's happening more often, oh, it totally makes sense. And it's starting to become a regular thing, and these UAPs are hitting the media. Well, what do you got to do to control the media? You got to control a different narrative. You got to start flying all sorts of weird stuff in the skies. And then you could add a little bit of confusion to the, okay, well, dude, we had 100 freaking drones fly over people's houses and nobody knows why. Well, they have the same capability, FAA lights. They look like small planes, but they're not. But then when FAA restricts the airspace, they don't show up. But then when they lift the restrictions, they show up again. I'm wondering if there's a connection there. So then we get reports. The White House comes out, says, oh, yeah, they were authorized by the FAA for research purposes. Various research purposes. Why are you flying over the golf course? Why are you flying over President Trump's golf course? What kind of research are you doing? Well, the best golf players in the world play at Trump's golf course. We'll use that as a marketing strategy. Yes, marketing. Brilliant. I mean, I could see why they would fly. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Not only have they been spotted over military sites, over reservoirs, over residential houses, I mean, just all over the place. They've also been picked up in Germany, in the UK, in China, in Hong Kong. Very interesting. The description to be about the size. Oh, you know what? The more I think about this News Nation video now, the more I'm thinking about it. The way that the gentleman, I got to interview this guy. Because I'm really starting to question the timing of the video. And when he describes it as being look, the guy looks like a tough freaking dude. I mean, so much respect to him. And I don't think he's telling us, when he started getting emotional about the experience he had where he felt like he got possessed by this non-human intelligence, like you could tell he was getting really emotional. He's a helicopter pilot, retired for the military. I've got a friend that's a retired helicopter pilot. And he had a very similar experience at his house with a non-human intelligence. But I just find it interesting, the timing that it was released. And I find it very interesting when this one specific part where he describes the UAP or a UAP being SUV sized. There's got to be some lingo in the media with this SUV sized. It's about the size of an SUV. Yeah, that's what the media says. Oh, about the size of an SUV. Oh yeah, it's about the size of an SUV. Like, that's what they were saying about Langley. That's what they said about the Hill Air Force Base when these things were spotted over Hill Air Force Base. I have a family member that works close to Hill Air Force Base at Northam Grunup. Dang it, I keep mispronouncing the name. The defense contractor, they bought out Thiokol. They bought out a company that I think previously bought out Thiokol. So this place in the middle of nowhere, Utah, and then you've got Hill Air Force Base. Not only was this SUV-sized drone spotted over Hill Air Force Base, but this place out where Thiokol used to be, very sensitive areas where they do a lot of testing out there. There's even there's a museum out there where you can look at a bunch of decommissioned rockets and rocket parts. Hello. Did you see the size of that rocket? He launched it right into space. He learned it from watching Dr. Evil. Austin Powers. Okay, anyway, so I digress. The description of the drone spotted in Hong Kong. So this isn't just a U.S. phenomenon, folks. These things have also been spotted in China. Now, how much intel does China and Russia and other nations have that they're not sharing with the world? How many military bases have these things been spotted over in other nations that they just haven't told people about? Or maybe they did and it hasn't been picked up in Western media. I would be very surprised if these things haven't been spotted over almost every military site in the world, no matter what nation. The other guys they're just not talking about it. They're keeping it on the down low. And here it seems like there's this controlled narrative now of the SUV sized drones. So that could be slang for like UAP now in the intel community. Oh, it's an SUV sized drone. Oh, so it's one of those UAPs that we don't know where they come from, basically, that we might or might not have reverse engineered through various projects, but then we establish other projects that don't really know what's going on, but maybe they do, but maybe they don't. But the other, you know what I mean? It's like compartmentalization. People are like, well, you couldn't hide something like that, Rex. Really? The Manhattan Project? How many thousands of people were involved in the Manhattan Project that kept it secret for years in the middle of the freaking desert? Wow. Mermaid Moxie, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the super chat. Hello, super chat. Mermaid Moxie, she's been hanging out with us here at Leak Project since like pretty much inception. Thank you. It's good to see you. So Mermaid Moxie says, glad they weren't associated with an enemy or a threat. Well, the ones over New Jersey don't appear to be. But here's what's interesting. We're not seeing the stuff that's tracking the Coast Guard. We're not seeing the stuff that's tracking and swarming military equipment and military technologies and jets and fighter jets and nuclear silos. We're seeing small airplanes that are drones flying over people's houses in New Jersey. Don't you think that's kind of weird? Don't you think that's kind of weird? Think about that for a minute. And New Jersey, War of the Worlds? Hello? Then I was reading up on 5th gen and 6th gen stealth technologies. China recently showed off their 6th generation stealth fighter and stealth drone. Wow. The stealth fighter has like a plasma cannon or some type of laser cannon, and it has an extra engine specifically for their laser cannon. I mean, whoa, tailless design, and it's debatable if it's a true 6th generation stealth or 6th generation drone. But if you read through the specifications of what makes a 5th or 6th generation drone, one of the requirements is the ability to change shape, and not necessarily change shape, but appear to change with the environment. So like if you need to change the texture or the light or something that would cause you to blend into the environment even more so, that's 6th generation stealth technologies. And then wasn't it weird, the manifesto that went out to certain people, the alleged manifesto that was confirmed by the FBI that it was sent out by this guy that was in Vegas with the Tesla, the retired, or I don't think he was retired, the military special ops guy. And then the situation, there was some, I found some weird similarities between that event as far as could mean absolutely nothing, but there was an application used to rent that vehicle, like a certain app. The same app was used to rent that vehicle, which is an electric vehicle, as an electric truck that was used in New Orleans from somebody else that was in the military that used the same app. They both have electric trucks. That was kind of weird, and they were both military. But it could mean nothing. I mean, it could be just looking for some, connecting dots that aren't really there. And yeah, there might be some weird similarity, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the case itself, unless you look at it from a macro level aspect. But that manifesto claimed that China has technologies that are like basically from reverse engineered UAP craft, and that they're showing off their power, basically, like a show of force. And so wouldn't it be interesting if there was some truth to that? And you know what? I also find it very weird, the timing of that manifesto. Like the timing thing. Also, he made claims about like possible war crimes in Afghanistan and stuff like that, which could, could be a possibility. But I wonder if there was something added to it or something like that, just to kind of fit the narrative at the time with the drones, the mystery drones, the mystery. Oh, we can say that it's China's technology, so that we need to improve our technologies and that we need more bill. Like, have you also, like, let's not forget about all the bills that were presented for surveillance and for drones and for like taking away, like basically making it even more of a surveillance type state based upon the drone sightings. Like, people were ready to just sign. Oh, where do I sign, man? I'm scared. I'm seeing all these drones fly over my house, man. It's got to be an invasion. Where do I sign to protect my family? And then Ron Paul's like, wait a second, time out. Let's take a deep breath. Let's take a deep breath before we start signing all these bills, signing all these new laws. Let's see what's going on. Let's figure it out. And then, so we could look at the whole administration thing in one of two ways. The previous administration, they used the word salad technology, where like they could say stuff without saying it and not say stuff and make people think they're saying it by not saying it, and just, it's the whole neurolinguistic programming, patterns of words, etc. And they didn't really admit it, right? They're like, well, you're just looking at planes. I mean, they did, but they didn't. They're like, oh, they're just planes. Oh, they're just drones. Oh, it's normal. Oh, it's a part of the FAA. It's okay. It's but they didn't give a specific answer. And so President Trump's like, well, you know what? I'm going to come out and say what it is within about a day of me making it in office. Well, it's been a week. And so today they touch on it. They're like, yeah, they were drones. They were for research purposes. No big deal. Okay, I'll take the next question. Yeah, research purposes. Oh, yeah, military sites, reservoirs. Oh, yeah. People's houses. The research was we just wanted to see what people would do. No, here's the research. Now we know how to control the narrative. Now I'm just speculating here. I'm thinking out loud. So stay with me on this if you want to, or, call me crazy. You might think I'm crazy. Or how's the song go? You might think I'm fool. Anyway, I'm sorry. My thumb is smashed. Look at this thing. It's freaking twice the size of this one, man. You can't tell from that angle. But anyway, so thumbs up, man. What was I talking about? Dang it. I'm out of coffee, too. I'm out of coffee. What was I talking about? I want to apply for a press pass. Yes, I think I should. You know what? If I could get the support of you watching, like, that would be amazing, because I would absolutely love to be a part of that experiment to see what that would be like. I mean, another family member of mine just got back from DC. The previous administrator, and he's in his 20s. And so he was working underneath, I'm not going to say who, but I asked him when he got back, I'm like, dude, do you have some stories to tell? Like, you could probably tell us some pretty cool stories, right? And he's like, maybe a little. And that's all I really said. But anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. I'm like, do you miss DC? Did you like it out there? And he's like, yeah, you can't really, because he grew up in a town/city in the mountains, surrounded by mountains. And so to go from there to, DC, the heart of DC, working in the heart of DC. And then anyway, maybe he'll tell me something one day. I don't know. But why did I bring him up? I don't even remember why I brought him up. Oh yeah, Press Pass, DC. I think it would be fun to go to DC and have we could make some real interesting connections out there, but it would be scary. I mean, like, I'm gonna need at least 2 Neuralinks to fend off all the stuff that might be out there. So yeah, like not just 1, but 2. And I don't even want to get 1. So I don't want an implant. I'll be like, can I just do 2 wearables instead of the 1 implant, just 2 wearables? And then that way, and then I could have like super spy contacts, and like I could, track everything. It's hooked up to some super quantum computer, supercomputer network that tracks, gives me predictive programming on what everybody's going to do. So like everybody I look at, I'm seeing what they're doing 10 moves before they do it. So I know, and then I could take that back to the move that they're at in real time. Whoa, that would be pretty far out. I am 10 moves ahead of you. I know what you're going to say before you say it. Yeah, that'd be wild. So anyway, let's watch this again. Let's go back and watch this right now.
Before I turn to questions, I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office. From President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy. A statement from the President of the United States to start this briefing with some news. And with that, before I turn to question.
So, research, and other purposes. We're not going to tell you what, but yeah, you're not crazy. You were seeing drones fly over your house, and that was weird, right? To see 60 drones fly over. Like 181 mayors get together in a room. How many mayors does it take to know what's going on with the drones? How many? Well, it takes more than 181 in New Jersey, because none of them knew what was going on. At least they said they didn't. But how many of them actually might work for secret agencies and be like secret agents that might or might not know? I don't know, but it's pretty cool to think about, right? Have you seen The Agency? That is the coolest new TV show out right now. It's awesome. It's good. Yeah. Anyway, so what are we talking about? We're talking about the drones. We're talking about the mystery drones. We're talking about the FAA lighting. We're talking about how if there's a plethora of UAPs and UFOs out there that are tracking military sites and military vessels, well, you better figure out a way to control the narrative, because the news is going to start picking up on the real possibility that we don't know what these things are. But gee, oh my gosh, think about it. Now you can say, we knew what was going on the whole time. We knew what those were flying over Langley. We knew what those were flying over the 3 military sites in Germany and the United Kingdom. And we knew what all the reservoirs, we knew what all those things were. Yeah, the FAA authorized it. We knew. We just didn't want to talk about it. We just didn't want to tell you because it was an experiment that we were doing, because we can. I just think it's pretty, it's pretty wild if you really think about it. Pretty wild. So there you have it. And thank you for watching. Have a beautiful day. See if we got anything else here. There are 5G drones. China's military-grade 5G base station. China has unveiled what it calls the world's first military-grade mobile 5G base station capable of connecting up to 10,000 robots or drones in any terrain, facilitating seamless drone integration. Wow. The Raven drone looks like a bird. It's like a bird-inspired, has articulated legs. It can land, walk, hop, leap. It's called biomimicry, right? Biomimicry in drones. Mimic the flight mechanics of birds and insects to improve maneuverability and efficiency. Amphibious drones. VTOL drones, the VBAT. So this thing will shoot like vertical takeoff. It'll fly around, then it can land again. And then we were looking at the darts yesterday, which I highly doubt that's what the Coast Guard saw, unless it's super advanced from the dart as a prototype, because these darts are only moving at about 4.5 miles an hour, and their charge times are, I think, less than 20 minutes. But the VTOL stuff, this is the future, folks. These VTOL drones, vertical takeoff drones, you're going to see these things for everything from deliveries to military applications, surveillance applications, possibly some type of agriculture applications. You'll see them for research and development in the oceans as well, because they've got these drones called Naviator drones, which can be shot down into the water approximately 1,000 feet for about 2 hours. So they can operate for 2 hours underwater up to 1,000 feet, and they can also operate in the air for up to 40 or 50 minutes. And they're called Naviators. Look them up, Naviator drones. And then China's working on 6G technology. So China is pursuing 6G technologies, which are aiming to revolutionize communication networks. They're launching 6G lasers from satellites that you can download up to, I think it's 100 or 120 gigabytes per second, which is like essentially about 10 movies per second, depending on, well, they're about 1.2 gigabytes per movie, I guess. What else we got here? 6G. So they're authorized by the FAA for research and recreational purposes and pose no threat. Well, is that the same as the ones that were spotted over Langley, Hill Air Force Base? I think some were even spotted close to Wright-Patterson. They shut down Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I'm having a tough time understanding how this took place for so long. How could something like this take place for so long and stir that many feathers in the military-industrial complex and the FBI and different intelligence communities? But then all of a sudden it's no big deal. You know, the FAA knew about it. So if the FAA knew about it, if the FAA was authorizing it, how would all these other organizations not know about it? Is the FAA, like, do you need an above top security clearance or something? Do they have certain, doesn't make sense. Something smells a little bit fishy here, folks. But don't worry. They were authorized in New Jersey. But New Jersey, now notice they did just say New Jersey. They didn't bring up other states. That's interesting. I have theories as to why some of them could actually have sniffers on them. That's definitely a possibility. That would be one case scenario, but there's going to be 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 other scenarios as well. So anyway, thanks for watching. Have a beautiful day and be excellent to each other and be the change the world needs to see, everybody.